How are you? Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Marina. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. We are going to be talking for the first time on Mind Bloom on breast cancer and fertility. So that is major for me, and I thank you so much for taking the time to explain to us all the things you know about the two topics. First off, what makes your mind bloom, Caryn?
Having a growth mindset, honestly. I think that having been raised with a very fixed mindset, I had this preconceived notion that I knew what I knew and I could become what I could become. And when that concept of growth versus fixed mindset was presented to me, my mind literally did bloom. It was like blown. It was like, oh my gosh, like I could be anything I want to be. If I want to run, I can run. I don't have to listen to people tell me that my toenails are going to fall off, and I'm not built for that. I'm too small. I think that's something that everybody can actually, no matter what part of their life they're in, or no matter what situation they're in, if they can understand that you can grow regardless of what is happening, that the world is your oyster. And that happened to me because I did not necessarily have a growth mindset when I was going through my own fertility journey. I would say when I had breast cancer, my mindset was a little bit different because of the experiences that I had gone through. So growth mindset absolutely just makes my mind bloom and honestly makes me happy.
How sometimes, unfortunately, we come to this growth mindset, and I feel the same way, but through a traumatic experience. It's like, can't we just learn it the good way, the healthy way?
Yeah. But you know what? Such is life. And I never understood the comment that youth is wasted on the young, more so than I do now. I'm about to embark on a pretty big birthday next year, not yet. And, I would not go back into my 20s for anything. I really wouldn't. And in some ways, I'm a little jealous of people who, not in a destructive way. I'm jealous of people who were able to find that growth mindset earlier than I was. I guess I should be saying I'm grateful that I found it at all, because I know lots of people who will never find a growth mindset and will die on their deathbed having regrets. So 100%, yeah.
And resentment, regrets and resentment. No, you don't want those in your life.
No.
All right. So tell us a little bit more about you, Caryn, and about, you called it the journey you embarked on, helping others become fertile and give birth. So tell us more, including, if you don't mind, the breast cancer part of your...
Absolutely, yeah. So my name is Caryn Rich, for those of you who are new to me, and I am a fertility coach, and I help women and couples through the infertility journey more quickly and easily than they can get there on their own. And that idea was sparked after a lot of unpacking of emotions for the basically 8-year journey of my infertility to have the family that I have now. I was able to give birth to 4 children, and my story is very bittersweet along the way. 5 miscarriages. I lost a tube with an ectopic pregnancy, 15 ART cycles, which is assisted reproductive technology cycles, and basically a 5-year period that it took me to have my second pregnancy. And unfortunately, that pregnancy ended very bittersweet in that one of my twins, my second pregnancy was a twin pregnancy, and one of my twins passed away, my second son, and my surviving twin, my middle daughter, Olive spent 135 days in the NICU. And I spent a lot of time. I was always the kind of person who would try to find the happy side of things. I really was. I was a half glass um, full, not empty person. And my husband is very much the opposite. And obviously going through years and years of infertility treatments and what it does to you emotionally and physically and financially, frankly, is very difficult. And I felt like our answers were given to us once we finally had this successful pregnancy that was going so well.
Yeah.
What happened to them was very similar. Both of my babies were thriving in my belly, but it was my body. And that is a heartbreaking thing to have to wrestle with. And so, here I was, able to say, okay, we went through the 5 years of infertility and all of the treatments and all of the miscarriages because we were meant to have these twins. So then there I was in the hospital because thankfully, my cervix closed back up after Olive was born, my second son. And then from that time until Olive was born was another 5 weeks, which is miraculous. I'm written up in medical journals. It's not very common that once the cervix opens up, typically you will deliver both children. But for me, it did not happen that way, thankfully.
You delivered.
I really was like, okay, this is why, we were meant to have these twins. And then boom, I'm in the hospital. And I remember sitting in my hospital room saying, okay, God, what the heck? Like, I really thought we went through everything that we went through so we could have these twins, and now this. And every single day it was doom and gloom from the doctors, and they literally were monitoring my pregnancy in the NICU up until the second she was born. My water broke with her, or started leaking rather, at about 22 something weeks, and usually 23 is the minimum that they will take them. So 23 and 4 days is when she was born, and she had less than a 5% chance of survival. She was less than a can of Coke. She was 9/10 of a pound, 435 grams. For all intents and purposes, really, there was not a lot of hope. And, I learned a lot about myself through that experience. But, and she is a special needs child. She has a lot of intervention. She's had 40 plus surgeries. Here I was, getting her the care that she needed. And, she was, she had just turned 2 years old, and we had frozen embryos. And I had gone back to my fertility doctor because obviously after everything we had been through financially, emotionally, physically, and my and my OB at the time, my MFM, telling me that it was my body's fault and that I should never, ever, ever get pregnant again, that I couldn't carry it, I couldn't handle it. I was having some symptoms, and she wanted to do an HSG, which is something where we look to just make sure that there is no fibroids or anything like that. And I said, okay, let's do it. And she said, Caryn, I don't do that until after you get your period. And I literally looked at her and I was like, really? Like, come on, like after everything. She's like, nope, I won't do it. And wouldn't you know that 2 weeks after I started my Synthroid, we achieved a natural pregnancy when I was 42 with 1 fallopian tube.
Wow.
And that is my third child. And then after that happened, after I had her, and that wasn't an easy thing either. She wound up in the NICU for a complication as well. But it wasn't until about a year after I had her that I was able to look back and say, this is why. Because we probably realized that Olive's twin, was meant to be on this earth for the reason that he was, to save his sister. Mm. And a little while after that, it then became obvious to me, something was sitting on my heart for a very long time, that I needed to help other women through this journey. And shortly after my third daughter was born, I went for a routine mammogram and didn't really think much of it when they called me back to the bigger facility to have an ultrasound and another mammogram, because that was an oftentimes occurrence for me. But where I did get nervous was that, you know, after the ultrasound and the second mammogram, that I didn't get handed my little slip of paper. I got called back into the radiologist's office. So I knew. And, you know, it was a dark office, and I got called in, and you could see up on the screen was this thing circled.
You didn't get a biopsy.
So it was suspicious. And basically she said that to me, and I said, you know, doctor, give it to me straight. And she said, she's like, listen, I won't know anything till after a biopsy, but I'm pretty sure it's cancer. So I did. And 2 days after New Year's, I got the phone call confirming that it was cancer. And, you know, started the whole, you know, found a breast surgeon who I really, really loved. And, you know, fortunately for me, it was estrogen positive. And fortunately for me, it was very, very early and treatable.
What was it? What cancer was it?
DCIS, I believe. It's the truth. And because of my diligence with going for my yearly mammograms and being on top of it, I, you know, it was found. You know, it felt like another one of those situations, though, like, God, really? Like, after everything? Really? Like, it kind of felt like a sick joke, but I'm very grateful that it was found early. I'm 3.5 years out survivor status. I am, you know, in the stage where I'm still on tamoxifen, and I unfortunately, you know, need to go for DNCs every 6 months, and follow up, and mammograms and MRIs and all of that stuff. But I was very lucky. But, you know, the one thing that I couldn't help but think about, and the irony of October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, as well as infant loss and pregnancy loss month, is that, you know, I do believe there is some kind of connection there. Now, mind you, at the time, I never researched, you know, hey, is there a connection between the infertility drugs that I took for so many years and breast cancer? Because honestly, it wouldn't have changed what I would have done. I wouldn't have done anything differently, because it was the only way that I could get pregnant, was by taking the drug. So it behooved me not to Google if there was a connection. But, you know, that was the first thing I asked the breast surgeon when I sat there. I said, do you think that, you know, all the fertility drugs I took had an impact? And basically, you know, she gave me the stock answer of, research shows that there is no increase in breast cancer or cervical cancers from it. But, you know, a quick Google search will show otherwise, that there is, especially in women under 50 who have a successful pregnancy, they are at higher risk for breast cancer than a woman who went through fertility and didn't have a successful pregnancy years ago. And it was in that moment that I made a decision that I need to help other women through this journey. That is my calling. That is what I'm meant. That we went through all of this for a reason. Life happened for me, not to me. And the second that I took that control back and stopped looking at myself as a victim is when everything changed for me. Yep. Conference quickly turned into what can I do? How can I start this up? And essentially, you know, I started putting the pieces together. And, you know, there are fertility coaches out there. There are other fertility coaches out there, but I think each of us bring very unique ideas to the coaching. And mine is essentially based around you know, several things and patterns that I see over and over and over again. And one of the biggest ones that I see is I see these smart women not advocating for themselves, these smart women. And I was prey to that too. Like, I, in my gut, knew something was wrong with those twins. And I just, again, had this false sense of hope, because if the doctor told me it was okay, it should have been okay. Well, no, it wasn't. So I started, working on content that was geared, and my website is all geared at helping women, through this journey, and through one-on-one coaching and a digital course that I have coming soon, and, challenges that I have, and free courses that I have, is how I help women. And I also have a Facebook group where I help women just feel normalized through it. One thing I often share is that to this day, it is impossible for me to look at a pregnant woman without some kind of jealousy. And that may sound, ass backwards to some of your listeners, because I did go on to have pregnancies, but fertility is something that, did not come easy for me. And in my mind, no matter what, when I look at that pregnant woman, which really may not be the case, she got pregnant like that, right? And sharing my experiences and my thoughts and putting my heart out there has helped so many women that I've worked with feel like there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you that you can't go to your best friend's, bridal baby shower. There's nothing wrong with you. There's this people-pleasing attitude that we all have that we really have to kind of bring in when we're going through something stressful like infertility. Stress has been shown to increase cortisol and inflammation and so many bad things that you don't want when you're trying to get pregnant. You need to have an environment that's wholly, accepting of that embryo, right? So basically it has just been something that rewards me so much, in that it lights me on fire to help other women through this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Caryn. This was amazing. I learned so much, and you packed up so much information in just maybe 30 minutes. We've been talking. This was great. I thank you so much for taking your time, and I do want to continue.
Marina Gee, thank you for having me, and thank you for this very important subject matter that you broach in such a lovely way.
Oh, thank